the circumstances that led to Nolan Xavier Wales entering the water. Last time we saw him on the videos, he was without a shirt. Somebody saw something. Somebody knows something. Why is Nolan Wales dead?
That question has hung in the air since July 4th, since 18-year-old college football player Nolan Wales vanished from a remote island only to be found days later under circumstances that still don't add up.
Nolan Wales was 18 years old. He played football. He had, by every account from the people who loved him, a rare kind of light about him. The kind of person friends describe as genuine, easy to be around, impossible to forget.
Why is Nolan Wales dead?
Losing a child, it truly breaks your heart. It is a pain that is just, you can't measure it. Especially someone like Nolan, who brought so much joy and light and life to everyone. You don't find too many genuine people like him, so to lose that light at such a young age under these circumstances has been absolutely difficult, which is why we've gone this route. There's so many people out in the public asking all of these questions, but the only question that we have is what happened to our son.
On July 4th, that light went out on a remote island, under circumstances that, weeks later, still haven't been explained. Here's where things stand right now. An independent autopsy has been completed. The findings are preliminary, and they raise as many questions as they answer. Nolan vanished from the island on the 4th of July. His body was found days later. Since then, his family, represented by attorney Ben Crump, has pushed for transparency they say they haven't received from local authorities.
Ben Crump made this huge announcement standing at the podium at the NAACP convention with the preliminary findings. We know that Nolan Wales' body was moved to Washington, D.C. Again, the family commissioned this, they ordered this. And these are the findings that provide our first independent look at what happened. Now, before we even got to those findings, Ben Crump laid out why this fight for transparency even exists.
That distrust is why they commissioned a second, independent autopsy, performed by Dr. Mitchell in Washington, D.C. This week, Crump stood at the podium at the NAACP convention and walked the public through what that pathologist found.
I want to thank you all who have called the call center. I want to thank Reverend Al Sharpton. I want to thank Mr. Tyler Perry. I want to thank Mr. Terry Owens for putting up the $125,000 reward for anybody out there who have information so we can get to the truth of what happened. I mean, any videos, and we've gotten so many videos, President Johnson, from that day from young people, and we want them to have the courage to come forward with the pictures. What you heard, I know people say there were a lot of disturbances out there. Some believe it involved Nolan. All of those things are important to get to the truth of what happened. And so that's why I thank you all for being here, because this news is as important as any news in the United States of America. Finding out.
Before we get into the findings, a quick note. What follows are the preliminary results of the independent autopsy, not the official findings from the state medical examiner's office, which are still pending. The report lists both cause and manner of death as undetermined, pending investigation.
Preliminary report, second autopsy, death of Nolan Xavier Wales. Cause of death, undetermined, pending investigation. The manner of death, undetermined, pending investigation. Focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head, the occipital region. He said the etiology is unknown at this time. He said the body was received after the initial autopsy. He said the body had marked decompensation.
So what do you hear? Cause undetermined, manner undetermined, this red discoloration on the back of the head. But this is where it gets interesting.
It notes a focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue at the back of Nolan's head, over the occipital bone, measured, according to Crump, at 12 by 8 inches. The report also describes marked decomposition of the body. Dr. Nar Rutherford, the Richland County coroner, broke down what those findings actually mean. And she didn't hold back her concerns about how this case has been handled. Her first point: she believes an independent autopsy should have been offered to this family from the very beginning, given the circumstances.
What do we mean by this? What do we take away from this?
Number one, given the circumstances surrounding this case, I am extremely disappointed that an independent autopsy was not performed from the beginning. Yes, the state has a responsibility to perform the autopsy, but even the county coroner said, I want no parts of it. I'm sending this to the state ME's office. So if they were going to do that, they should have given this family the option from the beginning to have an independent autopsy, because things are missing from this independent autopsy that as a mother, as a community member, don't sit right with me. Number one, if you were going to hold back any parts of the body.
Instead, the family had to commission their own after the fact. And when they did, they discovered something troubling. Certain parts of Nolan's body weren't included when Dr. Mitchell received it for examination.
And that is very concerning to me. Why would you hold back the neck muscles? Why would you hold back?
Let me play that. Let me play that portion of the press conference right now.
The anterior inner neck structures were absent, not received with the body. The trachea and the laryngeal cartilage, the thyroid horn, and the hyoid bone were not received with the body. Therefore, this pathologist cannot rule out injury to the neck as a contributor or a cause of death.
Specifically, the anterior neck structures, the trachea, the laryngeal cartilage, the thyroid horn, and the hyoid bone, were absent. According to the independent pathologist, that means he cannot rule out injury to the neck as a possible contributor to Nolan's death. Dr. Rutherford explained why that detail matters so much. The hyoid bone and surrounding strap muscles are exactly what a pathologist examines when checking for signs of strangulation or blunt trauma to the neck.
Yes, it is typical to remove them. Whenever an autopsy is performed, we are removing those internal structures so that we can further examine them, not only from a visual standpoint, but from a microscopic standpoint as well. Now, when we look at the neck muscles, we look at what's called the strap muscles. So if you just to give you kind of an idea, these are your strap muscles, okay? But right here sits your esophagus, sits your trachea, sits your hyoid bone. They specifically mentioned that the hyoid bone was not included in the body when the independent examiner received it. That's a significant point for me, because that means that they are checking to see if the strap muscles had hemorrhaging, meaning signs of strangulation. Petechial hemorrhaging is very important, but also bleeding into those muscles. The hyoid bone, examining that bone, being able to remove the soft tissue from it to check for signs of trauma, like a fracture to that bone, is crucial when you're thinking about possible strangulation or someone being choked, hit in the neck area, blunt force trauma. The other thing that's significant for me with this is that they could not determine whether or not intracranial hemorrhage occurred.
Without those structures, that entire category of injury simply cannot be assessed. She was clear that it is standard practice to retain body parts for further examination. But she said the family, and the independent examiner, should have been told this was happening. And why? That communication, she said, didn't happen. Then there's the discoloration on the back of the skull, 12 by 8 inches, focal rather than spread out, meaning it was contained to one specific area, precise enough to measure. Dr. Rutherford said that kind of localized marking can indicate a point of impact.
This red discoloration on the back of Nolan's head in this tissue area, I believe they call it the focal, you would know better than me, the focal They call it the focal.
They called it a focal discoloration, meaning that
Yes.
it wasn't a diffuse discoloration, meaning it didn't cover a wide area. It was very specific to that area, so specific, in fact, that they could measure it to determine that it didn't spread anywhere else. So I think that's really important because that could be a point of impact.
There was no underlying skull fracture. But she noted that bruising occurs before death, not after. The body doesn't bruise once the heart stops.
I digress. The discoloration that they discussed, just want to make sure I'm quoting them correctly in what they stated, said it was a 12 by 8 inch red discoloration overlaying the occipital bone. So I think that's significant because this shows a blow from behind. No matter whether or not it caused intracranial hemorrhage or not, we know that there was no underlying skull fracture associated with it. So the fact that this happened to him, we know that this was a anti-mortem thing, that this happened before he died, because you don't really bruise after you die.
The why behind that mark is still unknown. There's also a discrepancy worth mentioning.
Now, this is another issue to try to make sense of what the condition of Nolan's body was. Okay, so I want to make sense of this. I want to try to understand what all of this means. I'm bringing on one of our favorites in this space. This is Dr. Nada Rutherford, Richland County Coroner. So good to see you, Doctor. I knew you were watching this live. We were watching it live. I know you were taking a lot of notes as we were trying to make sense of this. There's a lot of different areas here to go into. I guess I'll just start with the big conclusion from this independent autopsy, and you tell me how limited independent autopsies are. But the fact that it came out that the cause and manner of death are undetermined pending investigation, is that something that surprises you? Or and what do we mean?
Crump stated that the United Cajun Navy, who located Nolan, found him fully clothed and face down. But the last confirmed images of Nolan, circulated widely since he went missing, show him in swim trunks, no shirt. There's also newly surfaced footage, reportedly recorded around 2:23 p.m. on July 4th, that appears to show someone matching his description on a boat, wearing the same blue trunks, shirtless. The United Cajun Navy has since publicly disputed Crump's characterization, saying on social media that they never said Nolan was fully clothed, only that he was wearing swim trunks. Two different accounts of the same detail, and right now, no way to reconcile them.
For certain things. Now, again, this body was found later. It was found in an outdoor area, but we don't know if that body had been there the entire time, or did somebody bring it back and drop it off? They say he was fully clothed, but in all the pictures, he doesn't have a shirt on. There's so many.
If you've been tracking every detail of this case, as closely as we have, you probably caught that contradiction the moment it surfaced. That instinct to notice when two accounts of the same fact don't match is exactly the kind of scrutiny cases like this need. Dr. Rutherford also raised something she called very significant. With the neck structures and other findings missing or incomplete, it's difficult even to confirm the manner in which many assume by default an accidental drowning. To make that determination, she said, investigators would need to know whether there was water or debris in the airway.
So a lot of questions about this. Number one, the fact that those, I hate to say it, those pieces of Nolan's body are missing, does that mean you can't even determine whether this was an accidental drowning?
Exactly, because I need to know when they received that body at that first examination, was there water in the airway? Was there debris in the airway? What were the contents of his stomach? Were there pills there? Was there alcohol there? Was there food there? That gives me a timeline on when Nolan may have last eaten. What was he drinking? I'm examining the contents of his stomach. How was his body found? Was he found actually in a body of water, truly inside of the water, or was he just on the shoreline? All of these things matter greatly when you are doing a water death, especially.
So if the first examiner, right, removed those body parts, does that suggest that they may have a conclusion, that when the state ME's report comes out with the toxicology findings, they may have a conclusion whether or not there was foul play, whether there was trauma to that region, whether there was drowning, that the fact that they removed those pieces would suggest they may have an answer?
They sent everything else.
What was in his stomach, how long it had been since his last meal, and whether he was found in the water or only near it. None of that has been made public yet. So here is where the open questions stand, in the independent pathologist's own framing, laid out by Crump. What led Nolan into the water in the first place?
I want to play something else from Ben Crump this morning. Let's take a look.
This pathologist cannot rule out if any intervening non-accidental factors contributed to or caused the death of Nolan Wales. Understand, he's saying based on the examination of the body, he cannot rule out foul play. That is significant. With the following questions still outstanding, number one, what were the circumstances that led to Nolan Xavier Wales entering the water? Number two, what was the body position when it was found? Number three, was there water in the airway? Remember he talked about the lungs and the airways, were they filled with water? Number four, is there any evidence of injuries to the anterior neck structure? We got the autopsy without his neck. We got the body without his neck at the time of the second autopsy. Number five, is there any evidence of any intracranial hemorrhaging? He said that is going to be very significant, things that he could not observe at autopsy that the initial medical examiner would have been able to observe. Number six, was the composition of what was the composition of the stomach contents? He talks about that being important because when was he found? How long had he been in the water? How long had it been since his last meal? All those things become relevant factors when you're trying to do a thorough and impartial autopsy. And number seven, what are the toxicology report findings? He said the best classification again for the cause and manner of death for Nolan Xavier Wales is undetermined pending investigation.
What position was his body in when it was found? Was there water in the airway? Is there any evidence of injury to the front of the neck? Any sign of intracranial hemorrhaging? What was in his stomach? And what will the toxicology results show? Every one of those questions remains genuinely open. That's not speculation. That's what the report itself says it cannot rule out. What happens next largely depends on the state medical examiner's official autopsy, which hasn't been released. Crump has said the district attorney indicated the case could eventually go before a grand jury, though no timeline has been set. The FBI has also become involved, reportedly looking into threats connected to the case, and the reward for information leading to a conviction, assuming a crime is ultimately confirmed, now stands at $125,000, after contributions from Reverend Al Sharpton, Tyler Perry, and Terry Owens. Dr. Rutherford was careful to say something important here. Raising these questions is not the same as concluding wrongdoing. An incomplete report, missing body parts, a discrepancy in witness accounts. These are gaps in the record, not proof of what happened. The honest answer, right now, is that nobody outside this investigation knows for certain what happened to Nolan Wales. Not yet. What we do know is smaller, and somehow it's the part that stays with you. Nolan was the kind of teammate who showed up early. The kind of son whose father, at a press conference about his death, still couldn't help but talk about his football career. The sport that was, by every account, his first love.
This is a student athlete. This is someone who prided himself on his athletic ability and staying healthy to play football. This was a first love for him. You hear his dad speak so passionately about his son's football career and what he was trying to do. So I can't imagine that this is a kid who's just out here, doing drugs and drinking. And if someone saw him doing those things, then step forward, say something. Because we know as parents that our children don't tell us everything that they do.
Somewhere in all of this, there's a locker that still has his name on it, cleats that are still by a door, a group chat that's gone quiet. His family has said, over and over, that all they want is the truth. Whatever that truth turns out to be. Not a version shaped by public pressure. Not a rush to conclusions in either direction. Just an honest account of what happened to their son. So we'll keep watching for that state autopsy, and we'll keep bringing you what's confirmed, as it's confirmed. If you are following this case closely enough to catch that discrepancy about how Nolan was found before we laid it out. What do you think it means, and what do you think should happen next? Let us know in the comments. And if there's an update on the toxicology results, or the state's official findings, we'll have that breakdown for you as soon as it's confirmed. So stay subscribed for when that comes in.